changing or transforming content.
Journalism, I don't have to tell all of you that it's a time of tremendous turmoil, angst, anxiety from people who are in the field. And I left television earlier this year and took a deep dive into digital. 58% of our social media traffic to our National Consumer Product Reviews website comes from one source, and it's probably not the source you would guess. We do have a primarily female audience. We do get a fair amount of traffic from Facebook, but actually 58% of our traffic comes from Amazon Askville. And 17%, the second highest, comes from Yahoo Answers. Then comes Facebook.
Pinterest is becoming big, Google Plus is becoming big, and everyone wants to know how do we measure those things, and it all comes back to basic measurement and research principles. So I mean, that's the one thing I would emphasize is keep teaching those, because I still use them every single day.
What I tend to find is that a lot of the time when issues of measurement cross my desk, it's usually a very in the moment kind of scenario. I do a lot of digital crisis work for the clients at Edelman, and very often it's kind of like, if you're familiar with what a halo jumper is, it's somebody who basically jumps into a particular situation from a very high altitude and opens the chute, maybe a few hundred yards before hitting the water with somewhat bone-shattering force. And so what tends to happen is that we look at situations where how can a crisis or an event or an issue be somehow mitigated. And unfortunately, the people in my profession who tend to get the most press on this tend to use some rather black hat techniques. But where measurement really comes into play into what I do is determining whether or not a company should respond. Now, social media absolutists and egalitarians may say that a company is obligated to respond to everybody equally, and that's just simply not practical or strategically sound. So what I tend to point clients towards is, number one, if something hits online that is potentially damaging, maybe not to the level of crisis, although it could be. The first thing I ask is this somebody that we previously identified we have or want a relationship with? And even for some of the largest companies I work with, that list I tend to try to keep that list very small. Small as in no more than about 150 parties. If it fails that test, then I ask, is the person otherwise influential? So if I'm a computer products company and let's say a suburban mom with a Tumblr account says something very bad about my product, chances are that mom isn't part of my 150, but it could so happen that that day, depending on the number of people that are not only listen to her and follow her, but are moved to respond, congratulations, that's the most influential person on my client's business that day. Failing that test, I also look at what's the velocity of chatter, right? So very often we're focused on the number of posts something has inspired or the number of followers that somebody has.
What I'm working on is pretty new in the front office, at least it was a year or two ago. So I have to prove myself and say, I do need a budget, and here's what I would use it for. And when you ask for money, the CFO's reply is, well, why is it worth it, and what's the ROI? So I am happy to say we have grown quite a bit. We've got a little bit bigger staff now, got a budget. And we use measurement in a variety of ways. I've got a monitoring service to get that kind of fire hose of tweets. We use Sysomos. There's other platforms out there like Radiant 6. I preferred Sysomos when we did the various trials. It's a Markiplier company. And they do the quantitative and qualitative analysis on social media content that's available. We'll do analysis on campaigns. So, for instance, we've had social media nights this year. We've had Follow Fest events in the past. and I'll track kind of what our normal following rate is. So the objective there is to get more people to follow us, raise awareness of our platforms. So we'll track kind of on a normal month how many people follow our platforms. And this one was Twitter specific. And then when we go into PR mode on this campaign, and we're really pushing out there, we're having these events, we want to gain followers, then we'll look at that time period and say, how many followers did we gain that?
And what I'm finding is that there's an acute desire and need for people who can adopt what I call an analytic mindset to the kinds of problems that we solve in journalism, advertising, or public relations. And I really, just echoing what Rebecca said, this is a great opportunity to bring real-time applied data to traditional, what some people may think of as boring, research methods classes. I mean, if you taught research methods a lot, that's the class that years later the students come back and they say, at the time I didn't really like it. But it's like I'm all about the big but. It's like that was the one that distinguished me, that brought me the opportunity, that whatever. So that's the opportunity. I've been slow dancing with Google Analytics for the past 3 or 4 years, and I did just sit for that exam, and it was hard, and I did pass it. But I'm going to advocate that as a platform for you because it's ubiquitous. I think it's about 80% of all the analytics packages out there. It's free. There's this marvelous multiple ecosystems of support. So I'll give you a couple of those right now. Google wants you to get good at it, so they offer a series of short videos called the Conversion University, and it's tied in with all their AdWords products as well. But the AdWords or the Conversion University videos are short, they're very clear, they make nice snackable things that you can bring into the classroom and just play them.
Most social media metrics are crap. They're built for speed, not for reliability, not for accuracy, not for validity. They're built for consumption rather for people who are interested in research or science underneath analytics. So I'll just start with that sort of controversial statement. I'll give you an example, and I'll give you some more examples. But I first have to disclose, as introduced as the founder of a software company that was a derivative of NSF-funded research at a university. Someday I could make money off this. Today I haven't made a penny off it. But some of our early adopters include JetBlue, QVC, Google just bought their first license. So we're doing something right, which is we're doing science underneath metrics rather than just colorful charts, which is what a lot of people get. So say I go into Radian or Sysabus or one of these other competitor products, disclose there are my competitors, and I put in the word AVON, Avon. What am I searching for? Right? The company for women, of course. We all know Avon, the Avon ladies, right? Who bring the cosmetics to your house. Well, if I give you like sentiment is positive, sentiment is negative, sentiment is spiking, traffic is spiking on Avon, what am I reporting? Avon, Connecticut, Avon, Indiana, Avon, Barksdale, TV character. There are all sorts of things that require disambiguation in the social media world, and it never gets done. Okay, let me say that again. Avon is not a unique example. Pittsburgh Penguins, query on penguins. You get a lot of really cute birds that can't fly, yeah, but you also get Pittsburgh Penguins. If I've got a tool that's reporting sentiment on penguins, am I getting Pittsburgh Penguins or penguins? Yeah, there's some problems there. And these are just a couple of examples. Taking a step backwards, what do? We train custom machine classifiers to disambiguate things like that. Yeah. So we human code some subset of the total population. We train the classifier now, 94-95% accuracy. We can say with very few characters, this is Avon, the company for women, and this is not. Or these are Pittsburgh Penguins and these are not. So when you see social media metrics and somebody feeds you a bunch of charts and graphs and reports, you have to ask them, what did you do to test the reliability or the accuracy of the tools that generated these metrics? And most people would say, well, I pushed the button on the software and I got my report.
And God help anybody who does any any conversation research in the pharmaceutical industry, right? You know, because the amount of spam that happens when you search for darn near anything, you know, keyword stuffing operations and that sort of thing. And I've seen charts presented that you know, you look at this dramatic spike or this dramatic level of you know, conversation, and it turns out all of it's it's like 80% of it's like from like 12 guys, you know. And I tend to find that when you look at a lot of the tools that are out there, what's been interesting to me is that I remember the tools that we got really excited about like around 2005 or so, and there was, I think, a period of time where the free tools offered about that much quality, and the very expensive tools that you paid for offered about that much quality, right? You know, and so you ended up paying a lot of money for an incremental level of quality. And now, go to those same things that, you know, perhaps, you know, if you were looking at this in 2005, 2006, that perhaps excited you back then, and you find that all the free tools are mostly crap, you know, and the paid-for tools are actually getting a little bit better, right? So the delta is actually quite a bit further, and I think it's, you know, number one, I think the tourists have gone home when it comes to developing these things, right? That's number one. Number two, you know, I think sort of, you know, people realize that it wasn't just a toy people were playing with, right? You know, there's serious value in this data rather than, you know, using it as some kind of way to entertain oneself. And, you know, the point you were kind of alluding to, I thought, was that when it comes to the presentation of this data, people are very satisfied with very little, you know, and you know, if the chart goes up and to the right, bravo, great, you know, that could be anything. And part of it is, you know, to your point, you know, nobody is technically an expert, but you know, I think if people can be encouraged to ask the right questions.
You won't believe what Kim Kardashian wore yesterday. That's how I should be framing everything that I write on this website.
And obviously there's smart ways to, like New York Times will break a story into 2-page views oftentimes, and that seems fair and sensible to me. They will give you a 1-page view option. But for example, if someone comes to your website and they're looking for a product and they're clicking around and they never find it, the analytics view says, oh, that's great, long session, lots of engagement. But all they just want to know if you're open on Saturday or if you have it in stock. So again, that critical thinking is really important, and that's one thing that analytics can't help you with.
To what extent is that supplanting, you know, sort of pre-digital methods of learning what consumers think and want, surveys and polls and questionnaires and interviews and focus groups? Do we still need to have that in the arsenal? Are those diminishing substantially in the work that you do?
I think there's a lot to be said about the keywords that come on visits from search in terms of figuring out what people who have an itch, how you can scratch that itch. Sure, it's changing, but these are powerful tools that have never been available before. So I think we're all a little bit intoxicated by it.
I think people would be surprised the degree to which they're observed, I think, online, and the degree to which their activities are public. I don't think it necessarily supplants the focus group idea, because there's a certain richness that I think you get from it. But I mean, it certainly provides another dimension where at least the one thing that you're at least sort of solving for is that uncertainty principle. So
I would say that when you do that, the work is still very relevant. Voice of the customer, voice of the employee, those are areas where we get a lot of traction, because people have struggled in the past with thousands of open-ended answers. And we've had a lot of very large and prominent corporations using spreadsheets when they get their surveys done by third-party providers. They have no tools, and they're coding. When JetBlue first came to us, they were coding everything, 50,000 rows in a spreadsheet, topic and sentiment, by typing it into fields in the cells in the spreadsheet. And they're about 20,000 rows in, and they wanted to kill themselves.
Talk about your bad internship.
Yeah. That data is still very valuable. And, you know, if you work for a big company, you're going to do yearly, sometimes quarterly surveys. There are still many surveys in the field that are able to get responses that are useful, even though it is an instrument. Everybody knows it's an instrument. And in fact, those Likert scale questions are... Yeah, the Likert scale questions are crap, because the Likert scale means different things to everybody.
You're getting good at this.
But if you get somebody to type, a paragraph or 2 paragraphs about a product they use or want to use, or about a company that they work in, there's something probably good in there, right? That is useful. And I would just say what you want to do is triangulate through the traditional measures and the new social measures, and hopefully want to have all that data in one place so you can expose it to the same set of tools.